Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the front seat of my car. Out and about. Friday reflections time. I haven't done any videos since the last game against Southampton. Obviously, an international break. There's not usually a lot to talk about really with the club. Obviously, you've got the nonsense going on with certain players being banned to travel. I don't think that affects us. I think Almiron was going to be in a bit of trouble, but I haven't heard much more about that. So I don't really tend to cover it. I tend to just sort of forget about football really. Didn't watch any of the games. I watched about 15 minutes of England-Poland, and I saw the Kane goal, great goal, and obviously the way that Poland crafted a lovely little goal right at the end to steal a point. Very similar to the way Southampton stole a point against us in the last game. There's a few things to touch on in this video. I'm going to touch on Steve Bruce, touch on the goalkeeping situation, the return of a few players back to training, but also the common theme, and I was thinking about this earlier, of Newcastle bottling games in like the last 8-9, possibly, about 8-9 years. So first of all, big news, Steve Bruce, in the middle of what should have been a crucial 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever, of training, in which, let's be honest, we don't have a massive amount of international stars. Not like a team like, I don't know, a City or Chelsea, United, Liverpool, who, when it's international break, they lose the vast majority of their squad, to international football. So I think, let's have a look. You've got Miguel Almiron, Paraguay, Fraser to Scotland, although I wish he hadn't gone because he's injured yet again. Jeff Hendrick playing for the Republic of Ireland, Jamal Lewis, Northern Ireland, they're the most notable ones. Also, usually Paul Dummett would be away with Wales, and so on. So there's a few. There's not that many. Obviously, ASM doesn't play for France yet. Callum Wilson wasn't in the England picture. So first of all, actually, I forgot to mention in my little list, Callum Wilson, is he fit? Is he not? We've heard stories of a thigh problem. Apparently he tweaked his thigh very early on in the Southampton game, but played on because he was desperate to score a goal. Got our first goal, and then was hooked off not long after that. It was seen that we've got all we can get out of Callum Wilson here now. Let's not damage him further, hook him off while he's still reasonable. I heard rumours he'd be out for a few weeks, but I've heard nothing really from Steve Bruce. Obviously it's Friday, it's media day. I'll be honest, I've not watched any of the media videos as of yet. So hopefully Callum Wilson will feature. If he's fit, he has to start, in my opinion. We don't have any other striking options any other credible striking options really. Obviously Dwight Gale is a striker. He has scored goals in the Premier League, although I don't think he's hit double figures for some time, if ever, in the Premier League. He's not a striker you can hang your hat on every single week, or for a 38 game season. He might get the odd few goals here and there, but and Joe Linton, although Steve Bruce disagrees, is not a striker, and it's definitely not a Premier League striker. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening with Callum Wilson. I imagine if fit, he'll be partnered by ASM, who gave a great interview saying, again, and he's reiterated this quite a lot, and it's not an attitude you'd think a player as stylish and as skillful and as tricky and flamboyant as him would take, that he doesn't care if he scores, doesn't care if he assists. Obviously he wants to because he wants to help the team, but it's all about the team winning. It's all about the progression of the team, the result of the team. The team must win, which is like I said, it's a refreshing attitude for a player, like I said, an X-factor player like him. It is a refreshing attitude. What else? So I'm going to leave the best to last, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I said I haven't watched any of the media videos. I haven't. I just heard it on TalkSport earlier before I went to the gym. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has confirmed that Cristiano Ronaldo will play a part tomorrow in tomorrow's game. Whether that will be in his starting berth. Whether that'll be on the bench is yet to be confirmed. I imagine purely to maximise the PR, maximise the crowd, give the crowd the best opportunity to welcome him to Old Trafford. I think he'll start on the bench and be brought on. I really do. I think he'll probably be brought onto the pitch prior to kick-off, possibly. But I can't see him starting. I don't think he'll start. I think he'll be brought on possibly 70 minutes in, with the game probably already comfortably won, and you know, the Old Trafford can stand up and salute Cristiano Ronaldo returning. Also, we have Elly Anderson returns to training with the first team. Good to see him back. Hopefully, he'll get some opportunities this season. Not a mirror image because you haven't got the contract nonsense, but very similar situation to Matty Longstaff, in which he was brought in, given a debut against one of the traditional Big Six teams. I don't think they can be counted that anymore. Arsenal, like Matty Longstaff was against Man United, did very well. Okay, different because Matty Longstaff, I believe, played the 90 minutes, scored a winning goal against Man United, whereas Elly Anderson was brought on against Arsenal in the FA Cup, but looked good. All right, ultimately we lost the game and went out the cup, but he looked good. He looked encouraging. He looked brave. He looked to take the ball on. He didn't hide. He showed some good touches and some good. His ball control was what impressed me the most. He just looked so comfortable on the ball. It was really nice to see. So, but then he was sort of forgotten about, even during the time when we were on the bones of our ass with players. You know, like Ryan Fraser was injured or fucking out with a red card or something stupid. You know, ASM was struggling with injuries. Wilson was injured. You know, and during that time when we were having to rely on Joe Willock to get the goals, Elly Anderson, you know, you could have just chucked him in. You know, a little run in the team. You know, he wouldn't have done any worse than some of the other knobheads we had playing at that time, who were fucking not good. But it's good to see him back in training. Hopefully this season he can get a few more appearances, maybe clock up some decent first team time, and then maybe get a loan in January. Who knows? Because I can't see him playing enough this season, really. Bruce seems to sort of prefer to bring in other players who are just not good enough, really. I'm looking at you, Nabil Bentaleb. Anyway, so said a lot about Ryan Fraser. What was his name? Carl Darlow, the hero from probably the first half of last season, the goalkeeping sensation. He looks like he's ready. He's back in black, or back in whatever colour the goalkeepers are playing in this season, and he's ready to rock and roll. So it will be very interesting, because he didn't do an awful lot wrong last season. He sort of struggled and he tailed off a little bit when Martin Dubravka was brought back into the team and onto the bench, because, you know, Carl Darlow had done so well, and then everyone was calling for Dubas to come back in purely because he was fit, and he tailed off a little bit. His performances went down slightly because obviously he felt the pressure from Dubas on the bench, ready to take his gloves. Having said that, he earned a lot of fans last season, and I for one didn't know he was that good a goalkeeper, or he could produce that level of performance. So it'll be interesting to see whether he will be brought into the team, because like I said, he didn't do an awful lot wrong last season. We would have been dead and buried probably by January if he hadn't performed the way he did. We would have, you could argue, we wouldn't have been much off Sheffield United. And that sounds ridiculous, considering we finished in 12th in the end, which people point at when they're trying to advocate for Steve Bruce and some of the players. But let's be honest, you look at the points difference between 12th and 17th, it's not an awful lot, you know. Results went our way in the last couple of games. But Freddie Woodman Freddie Woodman, very similar to Carl Darlow last season in the fact that, again, he hasn't had that superstar performance that Carl Darlow was producing every couple of games. The Tottenham one stands out, you know. Liverpool, I remember a game against, not the Brighton one because we got smashed in that game. It was early season, I think it might have been Chelsea where we lost, but it could have been so much more, and he was just sensational. The Tottenham one is the standout highlight. So, but Freddie Woodman hasn't done anything wrong. He's had to face penalties in every single game he's played. So we've only played 4 games, 3 league games and 1 in the cup. He had to face a penalty in the opening day against West Ham. He had to face a penalty in the Aston Villa game. He had to participate in a penalty shootout against Burnley, and then Southampton, of course, got a penalty. So, you know, he hasn't had the easy start. Certain players have really let him down. Thought Kieran Clark was poor in the West Ham game. Jamal Lascelles has been ish. Freddie, you know, none of the defenders have really covered themselves in glory yet. So Freddie Woodman, you know, he's making his debut. He's never played Premier League football, and you've got all the pressure of the fans, you know, not happy with the team as a whole, not happy with the manager. He's come into a difficult situation, and that is putting it politely. So I wouldn't be rushing Darlow back in. I think Darlow he's an older guy. He's what, 31, 32. I think it's up to him to up the intensity of training to really help Freddie and be like, look, we're the goalkeepers. This, all 4 of them, you know, Darlow, Dubravka, Gillespie and Woodman. You know, the other 3 need to really get together and support Woodman. He's the youngest. He's the one with the most potential, I think. And at the end of the day, he's the number 1 at the minute. He's the boy in the team. So they all need to get around him and support him and help him out as much as they can. You know, Dubravka's injured, even if he can't do physical stuff, you know, little words of advice, brilliant. So I wouldn't be rushing to take Woodman out yet, purely just because Darlow is fit again. You know, I wouldn't want to see that panic from the manager to, oh, Darlow's fit, he must have got to go in because Woodman's not done anything wrong. Right, one of the goals, I'm just trying to think how many goals we conceded. 8 goals we conceded in the 3 Premier League games. Only one of them I could really point the finger and blame at Woodman, and even then the cross was far too easy to get in, which was Southampton's first goal, Shinepo. So yeah, goalkeeper's not our immediate problem. It's not our immediate issue that we need to solve right now. It's not the problem. It's the defence and the absence of any sort of resistance in midfield is the problem. So, last but not least of my little list before we go on to this worrying submissive trend, Steve Bruce went on fucking holiday. Steve Bruce went on fucking holiday. Now, I don't know, I think he went for 3-4 days, I don't know, that's not gospel, but the fact that he's even leaving the country on something that's not fucking work, that's not to do with improving the team or training, is fucking shambolic. He's gone on holiday in the first international break when we haven't even got a fucking win yet. We're winless. 1 point out of 3 games. Now I know, okay, it's early days and all this malarkey, but we should be getting more than 1 point out of West Ham, Southampton and Aston Villa, with 2 of those games at home. With Man United our next game, with Leeds coming up. Fucking Leeds are going to tear us to bits, man. So yeah, I'm disappointed, surprised, because I wouldn't say all of Brucey's mates in the media, but to be fair, it's much, despite what you think of Steve Bruce, whether it's his submission to Mike Ashley, to his trotting out the same old shit in pre and post match interviews, to his accepting defeat and, oh, there's plenty of positives to take. What? No, there ain't. I wouldn't have said he's lazy. I wouldn't have said he's a man who just thinks, oh yeah, I'm just going to bugger off on holiday. Now, A lot of people say, well, perhaps he was scouting. Well, that's what first team scouts are for. You know, the fact that we didn't lose many of our first team players to international duty, I would have have them in every fucking day, flogging them. Hard graft, tactics, sat down in the fucking team rooms. Right, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're drilling over and over again, set pieces. You know, I'm sure with sports science that there's certain tests and training they can do to maintain composure. I mean, I've read autobiographies by the All Black players, ex-All Black players, Richie McCaw and Dan Carter, probably the two most important players, arguably, the All Blacks have ever had. And you know, Richie McCaw in particular talks about the red zone, when things are going wrong, things are going badly, how, you know, players, they can move from the red zone into the blue zone, out of that shock, out of that panic of being stood under the post. We just conceded a try in the last 5 minutes, and how, right, positive mindset, we move on, forget that, we move on, this is what we're going to do forward, this is what we're going to do going forward. You know, surely that there's things we can do. I would, you know, I go back to, I was on a training course a couple of years ago, and we had a final exam on the first day back after Christmas. Now, we had 2 weeks off for Christmas, so a lot of people were saying, oh, why can't we do the, I'd rather do the exam first before we go and not ruin the Christmas. I mean, I'm not a teacher's pet or a fucking, you know, an academic mastermind, but I was looking at thinking, shit, we've got 2 weeks extra. It's 40 more days to glean what we can out of that time. Now, I would hope that the management were attributing the same sort of attitude to this international break. Thinking, right, we've got most of the players here. What can we do? How can we benefit from this too? What can we work on to see it as extra time? You know, especially with our next opponents being Manchester United. You know, the vast majority of their players are away. Low battery there. The vast majority of their players are away on international duty. So I would see this. I mean, a 2 weeks train. We're not going to catch up to the level of Manchester United in 2 weeks training, obviously. But I would see that as 2 weeks extra preparation that we've got on top of them. But no, it's not been seen that way, which is a shame. But yeah, I'm just mystified. I am going to do a bit more reading into it. There must be something going on. If it was a family emergency, bereavement, something of that ilk, I apologise, Steve, and I take it all back. But from what I've read so far, it wasn't. It was a holiday. But there we go. I'm going to have to press pause on this video. I will finish the rest later.